Good morning, everyone! So for today's video, we were going to tackle about the historical foundation of education. Are you ready? Let's go!
Welcome to our vlog! So our lesson for today is about the historical foundation of education. But before that, let us know first the relationship between the school and the society. To understand it, let us first define the two terms involved, the school and the society. So a school, as an educational system which is commonly compulsory, provides learning spaces and learning environments for the teaching of the students under the direction of teachers. On the other hand, society refers to a group of people who share the same culture, government, land, and set of social relationships. So a person can belong to a several society. It can be professional society, religious society, and social society. So that is, the things that make a person a society or the thing that makes a group of people a society is that they share the same culture and other factors. So now, we will proceed to the relationship between the school and the society. So a school or education is an institution created by society. While society seeks to preserve itself, and to do this, it maintains its functions and institution, one of which is education to assure survival, stability, and convenience. Society and school are inextricably linked. Society reflects the school, and the school reflects the society. Lastly, the school is considered an important agent of socialization. They are charged by the society to impart knowledge and necessary skills for functioning the society. They are also charged with the task of transmitting society's cultural values. John Dewey once said that it is the school that trains and introduces each child of society into membership within a little community, saturating him with the spirit of service and providing him instrument for effective self-direction. He also said that when the school succeeded to this, then we shall have the deepest and best guarantee of a larger community or society which is harmonious, lovely, and worthy.
Today, I will explain to you about education in primitive society. So let us define first what is primitive society. Primitive society is a term used to refer to the earliest society and to recent examples with simple technologies. Brinkerhoff further explains that in primitive societies, proletated persons faced the problem of survival in an environment that pitted them against natural forces and wild animals. In order to transform a hostile environment into one that is life-sustaining, human can develop a life skills that eventually became cultural pattern. These life skills included tool or instrument making, adherence to the moral behavior core of group life, and language. So how these life skills became patterns of education. So let us have first tool and instrument making. As tool makers, humans created instruments for their protection and food gathering. Their clubs, spears, bows and arrows, sleds, and other instruments were means of gaining control over environment. So let's move forward to the second life skill as pattern of education, which is coherence to the moral behavior core and group life. Life in the group was educational as children observed and learned from the older members of the group. Over time, many of the patterns of the group life became moral behavioral cores and became ways of dealing with the environment. And now, let us move on to the third life skill as pattern of education, which is language. The most important among human beings was the ability to use their abstract thought. The humanity's power to abstract, conceptualize, and communicate in oral and written language had tremendous educational consequences. Education involved an emphasis on language learning as children participated in songs, stories, and rituals that formed the group's cultural inheritance. So those are the 3 life skills as pattern of education. Again, the first one is the tool and instrument making, coherence to the moral behavior core of group life, and language. So that's all for today. I hope you learned something. Bye!
Hello everyone! Our lesson for today is about the history of the Philippine educational system. So during the pre-colonial period, the education was informal and unstructured. The father taught their sons how to look for food, while the mother taught their daughters how to do the household chores. So basically, this education prepared their children for becoming a good husband and wife. The education during the Spanish era was formal and organized. So there was a separate schools for the boys and girls, and the wealthy Filipinos or the ilustrados were accommodated in the schools. The educational decree of 1863 gave the Filipinos a complete educational system from elementary to college level, and the attendance here was compulsory between the ages of 7 to 12. The education during the American regime in 1898 until 1946 promoted the democratic ideals and democratic way of life. So the Department of Public Instruction set up 3 levels of school system. The first one is the 7-year elementary curriculum. The second one is the 4-year junior college, and later a 4-year program. The Commonwealth period during 1935 and 1942 was the free education in public schools was all provided all over the country in accordance to 1935 Constitution. In here, the education was also emphasized the nationalism, and the formal adult education was also given. The Executive Number 134 of 1936 was signed by President Manuel L. Quezon, designating the Tagalog as our national language. So the Executive Number 217, known as the Quezon of Code of Ethics, was taught in schools, and the Executive Number 263 in 1940 required the teaching of the Filipinos as the national language in the senior year of all high schools. The Education Act of 1940 was signed by the Philippine Assembly since August 7, 1940, which provided the reduction of 7 years to 6 years in elementary, fixing the school entrance age at 7, and the national support for elementary education.
Minasan konnichiwa, I am Judy Ann Despe. I am going to talk about the development of education here in our country from Japanese occupation to the present times. Let us start first during Japanese occupation. First aim of education during Japanese occupation is to make people understand the position of the Philippines as a member of East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere. Second is the eradication of the idea of reliance upon Western states, particularly the US and Great Britain. Their third aim is to foster a new Filipino culture based on the consciousness of the people as Orientals. Their fourth aim is to elevate the moral of the people, giving up overemphasis on materialism. Their fifth aim is the diffusion of elementary education and the promotion of vocational education. Their sixth aim is striving for the diffusion of Japanese language in the Philippines and the termination of the use of English in school. Their seventh aim, and also the last, is developing in people the love of labor. Let us move on to post-colonial Philippines, and during this time, education aimed at the full realization of the democratic ideals and way of life. And during this time, the civil service eligibility of teachers was made permanent pursuant to Republic Act 1079 in June 15, 1954. And also, Magna Carta for Teachers was passed into law by virtue of Republic Act 4670. A flag ceremony was made compulsory in all schools, including the singing of national anthem pursuant to Republic Act 1265, approved on June 11, 1955. There were a lot of development of education here in our country, and those I have mentioned were only few. And before I end this video, I also want to include the importance of studying history of education. And according to Dewey, studying the history of education is valuable since educational issues and problems often are rooted in the past. And by studying its history, it can help us to understand and solve today's problems. That would be all for today. Sayonara!